Page 62 continued. Question 55. Write a note on the principal images used by Shakespeare to indicate the theme, mood and atmosphere of the play Macbeth. This is from CU Honours Paper 1995. Answer. Bradley observes that Macbeth, quote, is the most vehement, the most concentrated, and the most tremendous of all tragedies, unquote. Metaphorical language in all its force runs through the play, and Shakespeare's style in this story of deception and murder has both the variety and intensity to emphasize the themes. Macbeth may be described as the poetry of terror and evil. Darkness pervades the play, and darkness symbolizes the horror of the deed. Many scenes are set in darkness. The murder of Duncan is followed by darkness at noon. The murder of Duncan is followed by darkness at noon. Quote, dark night strangles the travelling lamp, unquote, which means the sun. Page 63. Even the daylight scenes are mostly gloomy in their setting. A blasted heath, wrapped in mist, a dark cover. Lady Macbeth invokes darkness. Come, thick night, and pall thee in the dunnest smoke of hell, that is within quotes. But Lady Macbeth is conscious of the presence of light and heaven. Quote, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the dark, unquote. Macbeth addresses darkness as, quote, come, sealing night, scarf up the tender eye of pitiful day, unquote. The darkness provides the natural cover for the unnatural murder. Macbeth refers to night as, quote, nature seems dead, unquote, and also gently mentions, quote, the curtained sleep, which looks back by association to the blanket image used by Lady Macbeth. The keynote of the tragic world of Macbeth is struck in the lines, quote, good things of day begin to droop and drowse, while night's black agents to their praise do rouse, unquote. Blood is the key word in the play. From the appearance of the bloody, within quotes, in the second scene of the play to the last scene of all, we have a continual vision of blood. Macbeth sowed in the battle, quote, smoked with bloody execution, unquote. He and Banquo seem to, quote, bathe in the reeking wounds, unquote. The visionary dagger is marked with, quote, gouts of blood, which inform the, quote, bloody business. The earth is referred to as, quote, bloody stage. Macbeth sees the, quote, blood-boltered, unquote, face of Banquo. After the murder of Duncan, Macbeth sees the blood in his hands and his eyes are plucked out. Banquo wants to question this bloody piece of work. Macduff cries, quote, bleed, bleed, poor country, unquote. Lady Macbeth in her sleep walking remembers, quote, the old man has so much blood in him, unquote. Lady Macbeth smells blood and tries in vain to remove, quote, the damned spot, unquote, from her hands. Indeed, the word, quote, blood, unquote, recurs almost 100 times in the play. As Cat, K-A-T-T, has recently reminded us, the subject of the play is murder, and the prevalence of blood ensures that we shall never forget the physical realities in metaphysical overtones. The horror of the deed that causes the disruption of the moral order is kept constantly in the mind of the audience. Dress imagery. Imagery of dress and clothing recurs in the play. Through the dress imagery, Shakespeare shows us his imaginative view of the hero and expresses the fact that the honors for which murders were committed are, after all, very little worth to him. The idea constantly recurs that Macbeth's new owners sit ill upon him like a loose and badly fitting garment belonging to someone else. Macbeth himself expresses it when Ross hails him as the Thane of Cawdor. Quote, "Why do you dress me in borrowed robes?" Unquote. Banquo echoes the feeling when he finds Macbeth, quote, "wrapped," R-A-P-T, unquote. Quote, "New honors come upon him like our strange garments," ellipsis, unquote. When Macbeth declares to his wife that he, quote, "will not proceed further in the business," unquote, he cites as reason that he would wear his honors newly won in their new gloss and not cast aside. To this Macbeth replies contemptuously, quote, "Was the hope drunk when you dressed yourself?" Unquote. After the murder of Duncan, when Ross says he is going to Scone, S-C-O-N-E, to participate in the coronation of Macbeth, Macduff uses the same image, quote, "lest your old robes sit easier than our new," unquote. Here the ironic suggestion is deadly. Macbeth, quote, borrows, unquote, the robes of royalty. He wears them, yet in a sense they are only borrowed for his corrupt period of office, and he knows from the prophecy that the robes will not go to his descendants. His robes sit ill with him. His robes sit ill on him. Caithness, Caithnes, sees him as a man vainly trying to fasten a large garment on him with too small a belt. Quote, "He cannot buckle his distempered cause / within the belt of rule," unquote. Angus, A-N-G-U-S, in a similar image points to the degradation of the royal power of Macbeth. Quote, "Now does he feel his title hang loose about him like a giant's robe upon a dwarfish thief," unquote. The iterative image of ill-fitting garments shows the hero as a noble man dressed in garments not suited to him. He has usurped royalty and so he is ill at ease. It emphasizes the theme of appearance and reality. Page 64. There are images like sickness and medicine, planting and sowing, hand and eye. These images are related to the disruption of the natural order through evil and its final restoration. The babe image and its connected image of milk is used on a number of occasions to show how humanity, pity, sympathy, natural human feelings have been outraged by the murderers. Scotland is sick, and Macbeth asks the doctor to suggest medicine to restore the country to pristine glory. The victims of tyranny look forward to Malcolm as, quote, "the medicine of the sickly wheel," unquote. The naturalness of the order and the unnaturalness of its violation by Macbeth is emphasized by the images of planting and sowing, sleep and insomnia, quote, "single state," unquote, and its shaking, quote, "pleasant seat," unquote, of the castle, and the treacherous thoughts of Lady Macbeth. Bradley gives examples of magnitude and violence of imagery. Images like those of the babe torn smiling from the breast and dashed to death, pouring the sweet meal of concord into hell, of the frame of things disjointed, of sorrows striking heaven on the face, keep the imagination moving on a, quote, "wild and violent sea," unquote. See answer to question 44 for the rest. Question 56. How does the repetition of words and ideas contribute to the effect of poetry in Macbeth? This is from CU Honours Paper 1991. Answer. Shakespeare's play is a poetic drama. Poetry is organic with drama and is used to unfold the character in action and the theme. In Macbeth, Shakespeare used a number of images and keywords to unfold the total pattern of the play, making relation between character and action more intense and vivid. The word blood occurs over 100 times in the play. This sufficiently shows the horrific nature of the action of the play. Bloody man, bloody business, bloody stage, bloody execution, blood bolted face. Macbeth sees blood in his hand. Lady Macbeth smells blood. Lady Macbeth is frightened that the old man has so much blood. The poetry of terror and evil is enhanced by this image, and it produces psychological and dramatic effect. Darkness recurs in the play, suggesting the poetic tone and atmosphere. Lady Macbeth's first invocation to darkness, quote, "Come, thick night," unquote, illustrates at once the terrible richness of the language in the play. Night equals evil, as does hell. It encompasses in its fine economy the central character of the play, murder. Quote, "There is husbandry in heaven. Their candles are all out." Unquote. The darkness provides the natural cover for the unnatural murder. Macbeth refers to the fact nature seems dead. Unquote. The blanket image suggests the cover over the dead person. Quote, "Dark night strangles the travelling lamp." Unquote. Darkness does the face of the earth entomb. Duncan's death is like the crucifixion of Christ when the sun was eclipsed and the earth covered in darkness. In the Macbeth world, night's black agents to their praise do rouse. The repetition of darkness suggests the poetry of evil and disruption of order. These words and images enrich the reader's experience and enhance his appreciation of the poetry of the play. The verb do, done, are simple words, but they are repeatedly used. Quote, "Thus thou must do if thou have it." Unquote. The play on done and undone continues throughout the planning and murder sequences of the first three acts. Lady Macbeth gives pointed irony to the word by connecting it with double, within quotes, which has associations and innuendos of its own. Quote, "All our service in every point will done, then done double." Unquote. In Macbeth's soliloquy, the repetition of the word done indicates the emotional pressures and acts as index to the mind of a man of action who is hesitating before an action which in heart he knows to be wrong. Quote, "If it were done when it's done, then it were well. It were done quickly." Unquote. Page 65. The technical achievement here is remarkable. In 1.5 lines of blank verse, there is rich psychological and verbal compression. When the bell rings, which signals the immediacy of the action, he says, "I go and it is done." Unquote. Almost as if the action is already accomplished. Here, the ironic overtone, the wish fulfillment is apparent. After murdering Duncan, Macbeth says, quote, "I have done the deed." Unquote. The simple, stark expression gives the picture of the dreaded man and emphasizes the poetic effect of the horror of the deed. Lady Macduff's first words about her husband, quote, "What had he done to make him fly the land?" unquote, are pathetically reinforced by her saying twice, "I have done no harm," before her mother. The final mention is redolent of the poignancy of Lady Macbeth's madness. In her last words, she says, quote, "What's done cannot be undone," unquote. This is an ironical reminiscence of what she has said about Macbeth, quote, "Dost fear to do, then wishest should be undone," unquote. Thus the word do is a simple word which is repeated to enhance the power and resonance of the language. Lady Macbeth's use of the word is filled with rich suggestion. Quote, "Had he not resembled my father, I had done it," unquote. The words, quote, the words within quotes do and within quotes deed are repeated to enrich the psychological and poetic effect. Another word, strange, is repeated to underline the disruption of the natural order. Quote, "Strange screams of death," quote, "hours dreadful and things strange," quote, "strangely visited people," quote, "strange" is also used to suggest mysteriousness. English king has, quote, "strange virtue." The riches have, quote, "strange intelligence." My strange and self-abuse is the initiate fear, that was within quotes, Macbeth says to suggest the nature of the fear. Sleep is repeated to convey the idea of the disruption of the self. Quote, "Macbeth has murdered sleep," unquote. Sleep is the balm of injured minds, nature's second course. Macbeth, quote, "lacks the season of all nature's sleep," unquote. Lady Macbeth sleeps and walks at the same time. She suffers the retribution of guilt. Shakespeare juggles with the word honor. Both the words and wounds of the bloody surgeon smack of, quote, "honor," unquote. Banquo can augment his, quote, "honor, provided I lose none," unquote. Honor is used in the double sense, honorable position and self-honor. Banquo says of Macbeth's, quote, "new honors," meaning title, the title of Thane of Cawdor. Malcolm bestows, quote, "honors" at the end of the play. Macbeth, by doing service to the king, is, quote, safe to your love and honor," unquote. Lady Macbeth sparks of old honors and late dignities. Lady Macbeth speaks of old honors and late dignities. Honor within quotes means both, quote, within quotes, worth and the titles. Macbeth in the last act laments that he has mouth honor instead of honor. He laments the loss of honor, love, obedience, and troops of friends. Here the word, within quotes, honor, means reverence, respect. The ambiguity of honor is subtly used to suggest feudal ideas as well as ordinary sense of reverence, which Macbeth longs for but has lost. Closely connected with, quote, honor are the feudal ideas of, within quotes, duties and within quotes, service, the repetition of which helps to create a picture of an orderly and closely knit society in contrast to the disorder consequent on Macbeth's initial crime. Reiteration of, within quotes, fear and, within quotes, blood suggests the unnatural disorder. Thus, Shakespeare builds up the order of nature and shows the violation of that order by the murder of Duncan by Macbeth through the suggestive and subtle repetition of some words. Question 57. Write a note on the supernatural in Macbeth. Discuss in this connection the role of the witches in the play. This is from CU papers 1992 and 95. Answer: C. Supernatural elements in the play. Page 66. Question 58. How is the theme of appearance of the reality presented in Macbeth? Substantiate your answer with reference to the text. This is from CU papers 1994. Answer: C. Themes appearance and reality, dress imagery, dramatic irony, from question 53. Question 59. Quote, "It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing." Unquote. Do you think that the play corroborates this judgment of Macbeth? This is from CU Papers 1995. Answer. See answer to question 1. Question 60. It has been said that, quote, "Of all Shakespeare's tragedies, Macbeth is the simplest in outline, the swiftest in action. Discuss with your comment on the structure of Macbeth." Answer. See answer to question 4. Question 61. Give some instances to show how Shakespeare has departed from his sources in the play Macbeth, within brackets, particularly in the depiction of Duncan and Macbeth, brackets closed. This is from CU Papers 1992. Answer. See answer to question 2. Question 62. Bring out the dramatic value of Act 1, Scene 7 in Macbeth by showing with close reference to the text how Shakespeare splits his hero in two in this crucial scene. This is from CU Papers 1990. Answer. Act 1, Scene 7 begins with Macbeth's famous soliloquy, quote, "If it were done when it is done," unquote, in which Macbeth considers the pros and cons of the murder of Duncan. What deters him from the murder is not so much the practical consequences of the murder as the moral issues involved. He fears eternal judgment. He is sensible of Duncan's trust and virtue. He sees beyond the intended crime, knowing that Duncan would be pitied as, quote, "a naked newborn babe," unquote, and the angels mounted on the air will proclaim the horrid deed. He is afraid of moral isolation. The babe image merges into the image of cherubim, suggesting Macbeth's fear of judgment of the human heart. He is conscious of the, quote, "deep damnation of his taking off." He knows that by murdering Duncan, quote, he will enter into a world of appalling loneliness, meaningless activity, in loved himself and unable to love. Unquote. This is from Helen Gardner. He has no other incentive to murder but vaulting ambition, which is compared to a reckless rider who overlaps and falls down. When he meets his wife, he declares that he will proceed no further in the business. He explains his reversal of decision by saying that he has been endowed with new honours which he will enjoy and not cast aside like useless dresses. Lady Macbeth taunts him, accuses him, coaxes him, and tries every art to win him over. It is the fight between the eagle and the dove. Lady Macbeth here is the very spirit of evil trying to subjugate the good which is weakened by his struggle within. Ambition rages in him, but there is the oscillation between good and evil. His subconscious mind deters him from the murder, while his impulse seduces him to the crime. He grasps fully what is happening to him, but he cannot resist the impulse that seduces him to the murder. Macbeth the vacillator and Macbeth the murderer are all of a piece. There is no dichotomy in the character. Indeed, he is in an ambivalent state when Lady Macbeth urges him to murder and gives him the welcome plan of murder and the prospect of escape from the guilt of murder. The first murder is done almost in a state of frenzy. Macbeth, the great general, is easily subjugated by the fierce lady with her very undependable plan. The man who surveys with anguished clarity the motives and consequences of the imagined deed feels the strength of his wife's persuasion, returns to the, quote, terrible feat, unquote. He is not in his essential self when he resolves on the deed, but this does not mean that he has split into two. His essential goodness is subverted by the momentary impulse. Page 67. When he is led to murder, there is a temporary disintegration of his essential self, which however resumes functioning in his remorse, self-lacerations and repentance. We cannot adopt him selectively, feel a oneness with some parts of him and reject others. We become the murderer of the man who can hardly tolerate in retrospect the idea or murder. The anguish is so powerful and protracted, and terrible feat so quickly resolved on it. The anguish is so powerful and protracted that the terrible feat, within quotes, so quickly resolved on it that it marks only a brief failure of moral governance and are allied to the murderer. Question 63. Beware of Macduff, beware the Thane of Fife. Bring out the effect of this warning on Macbeth's character and conduct in the last two acts of the play. This is from CU Papers 1994. Answer. In Act 4, Scene 1, the witches concoct the spell for Macbeth. Macbeth arrives and demands answers to his questions. They conjure up the first apparition, which warns Macbeth to beware of Macduff. The second, the bloody child, says that, quote, none of woman born shall harm Macbeth, unquote, while the third says that Macbeth will not be defeated until Birnam Wood, B-I-R-N-A-M, Birnam Wood, W-O-D, comes against Dunciane, D-U-N-C-I-N-A-N-E. Macbeth is in part comforted. He has what Hecate called security. Within brackets, security is mortal's chiefest enemy. Security is mortal's chiefest enemy. Brackets closed. But at once a show reveals the heirs of Banquo, 8 kings. After they disappear, Lennox brings word that Macduff has fled to England. Macbeth immediately decides to attack his castle and put his wife and children to death. Macbeth knows that he has no fear. Macbeth knows that he has to fear Macduff from the first prophecy. But the second and third prophecies, quote, the juggling fiends, unquote, put Macbeth in a false sense of security, and he is fortified by the false hope that he will live his allotted span of life. He becomes desperate and belligerent. His first desperate action is, quote, the murder of the Macduff family. He becomes, quote, a dead butcher. We know from others, quote, each new morn, new widows howl, new orphans cry, new sorrows strike heaven on the face, unquote. He has become a tyrant. Macduff in despair says, bleed, bleed, poor country, great tyranny, lay thou thy bases sure, for goodness dare not check thee. Ellipsis, unquote. Ross reports, quote, where sighs and groans and shrieks that rend the air are made, not marked, unquote. Retribution is gathering its forces against Macbeth. The English soldiers are ready to help the Scottish nobles who have deserted Macbeth. Macbeth knows that the Thanes are flying. Those who remain with him give him mouth honour and lip service. His mood of defiance is combined with heart sickness. He fortifies his castle against the attacks of the enemies, but at the same time he is full of despair. Quote, my way of life is fallen into the sere, the yellow leaf, unquote. He laments the loss of, quote, honour, love, obedience, and troops of friends, unquote. His mind is diseased, and there is medicine to cure the sense of guilt that haunts him. He knows that Scotland is ruined. The doctor cannot, quote, purge it to a sound and pristine health, unquote. Again he is lashed into fury and is preparing himself to score the English epicures. He is restless, he is desperate, and again he lapses into despair and heart sickness. He is conscious that he has made a huge waste of life. He has been led by illusions. Each tomorrow comes and goes. Each tomorrow becomes a yesterday, befooling man and leading him to death. He has come to realize the vanity and futility of all his life. His imagination is active. His sensibilities have not weakened. His poetic ability makes him realize what is happening to him, unquote. So our judgment about the unredeemable sinner is suspended. His heroic spirit is retained till the end. He will, quote, die with harness on our back, unquote. He knows that he is tied to a stake, but, quote, bear-like, I must fight the course, unquote. He fights and kills the brave young Seward. He is a degenerate man, but his weariness, his despair, his sense of utter loneliness touch us with pity, while his defiance and fury strike us with awe. He retains the grandeur of spirit even in his degeneration and downfall. Page 68. Question 64. Analyze the imagery of any one of Macbeth's soliloquies and show how it reveals his state of mind. This is from CU 1997. Answer, see answer to question 33. Question 65. What dramatic purpose is served by the encounter between Malcolm and Macduff, Act 4, Scene 3? Answer with close reference to the text, CU 1997. Answer. In Act 4, Scene 3, we see Macduff in England and Macduff's interview with Malcolm, Duncan's eldest son, whom he regards as the legitimate king of Scotland. Malcolm is at first suspicious and does not trust Macduff. He wants to be satisfied that Macduff is not enemy's spy. He wants to test the sincerity of Macduff's patriotism and loyalty to the throne. He attributes all kinds of vices to himself, lechery, greed, and cruelties. He tells Macduff that he has no king becoming graces. At this, Macduff feels despondent and completely frustrated. He makes an outburst of his passionate grief. Macduff's holy anger disarms all suspicions and withdraws all his allegations against himself and, quote, places unreservedly in Macduff's hands for his country's service. This happy hour is further enhanced by the news that old Seward with 10,000 English soldiers was already setting forth for Scotland. This leads to the contrast between England's holy king and his power of healing, and the tyrant of Scotland with his misrule and outrages. When public affairs for Scotland seem propitious, there comes a private grievance from a man who is to play a leading role in public life. Ross comes, and after initial hesitations breaks the news of the slaughter of the Macduff family by the tyrant. Macduff is at first overwhelmed with grief, but gradually grief is turned to anger and resolved to revenge the merciless murder of his wife and sons. Thus Macduff, who is to play the key role in the retribution, is inspired by personal motive for revenge. Macduff becomes, quote, the agent not only of the grand nemesis, which constitutes the whole plot, but also a nemesis upon a private wrong which occupies the latter half of the play, unquote. Shakespeare is very much indebted to Holinshed's chronicle for his material in the scene. The first portion is practically a paraphrase of the chronicle. Chambers regards the scene as tedious. The dialogue between Malcolm and Macduff is, to many, dull and wearisome on the stage. But the scene may be made highly effective on the stage if the dialogues are uttered with the force and urgency that can reveal their hidden meanings. The scene is dramatically important as a choric commentary. The evil that Macbeth has caused is explicitly stated, and it is stated impersonally. Malcolm's suspicion and the long testing of Macduff emphasize the mistrust which is spread from the central evil of the play. The scene marks the progress of the plot to catastrophe. The help of English soldiers is assured. Malcolm is prepared to take the leadership, and Macduff, the main agent of retribution, is further fortified by a stronger motive for revenge. The reference to English king's divine power highlights Shakespeare's ideal of kingship. Malcolm is seen as cautious, suspicious, and calculating. At the same time, he is noble and honest, and is fired by the resolve to restore Scotland to her former order and prosperity. Thus, political stability, disturbed by Macbeth's crime and misrule, is to be restored, and there is the suggestion of rejuvenation of moral order.